All right, George, I'm going to let you take it from here, if you would, please.
Sure. So tonight we're going to talk about trick plays. I'm going to start out by talking about the substitution process because that seems where most of the plays come from. And then we'll talk about three other types of plays that don't happen that often, and some of which are not regularly considered to be trick plays, but they are unusual, and you don't see them more than once or twice a season. So let's go ahead and start with the first video. Okay, so what happened here is the offensive line didn't move. They froze at the snap, and there's nothing illegal with that. It probably gained them some fractions of a second for the quarterback to throw the pass, which he didn't complete anyway. But as far as I know, this is a one-time occurrence, and the reason why I showed it is it embodies what I think are the two key principles to trick plays. If you can put the slide up.
I keep clicking in that wrong spot there.
Okay, so these are what I think are the key principles. It's commonly accepted at the upper levels that if a team is going to run a trick play, they have to be perfect. And they're primarily talking about the formation. They get no slack when they're trying to trick the defense, and they do anything whatsoever that is questionable. The second principle is not specifically spelled out in the rule book, but there cannot be any verbal deception. So let's take a look at the second play and contrast that with the first play.
I think one of the things, George, that I struggle with, and when I requested you to provide us some video for some trick plays, is, what the definition of a trick play is. When do we assert a uniqueness of a trick play? And I think there, George, you've got some film clips that'll maybe emphasize some of that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a formal definition of a trick play, but one of the characteristics would be something that's unusual and not a typical play that would be expected by the defense.
And I've heard some people say, well, deception has always been part of the game. Yeah, let me turn off your video feed there. Anyway, so second play, we'll watch this through. Oops, sorry, I'm not on the right screen here.
Okay, so on that play, the offense sent about 8 or 9 players onto the field. Some of them got as far as the hash marks. Almost all of them got inside the numbers, and then they turned around and left. It was an obvious effort to confuse the defense, which they did, and before the officials could call anything, not that they would have reacted to that pandemonium, the defense took a timeout. So the offense was at least successful to the extent that they caused the defense to waste a timeout. There was no verbal deception here, but they didn't follow all the rules to the letter. When we talked this afternoon, we tossed about what rules possibly got violated. If they didn't communicate with anybody when they ran on the field, they were not substitutes, so they didn't violate the substitution rule. But there's another rule, 983, that says that you can't go on the field unless you're a substitute going on the field, or a replaced player coming off. So they clearly violated that rule. And then as a safe judgment, you could say they were making a travesty of the game by doing that mass dance routine. And then when you look at their final formation, the wideout at the bottom of the screen is not on the line of scrimmage. And I don't think he's supposed to be, though. So the point there is that we want them to be perfect when they run a trick play and no verbal deception.
So what is the quick? Yeah, go ahead. Somebody.
Hey, George, quick question for you. This is Terrence. On this play, you said the defense had to burn a timeout because they did the substitution?
Yes.
So let me just ask you a question on this. Is there a way, or possibly any of you guys on here, that we could put the umpire over the ball and just wait? And if there happens to be a delay of game or something, that's going to be on the offense?
No, the high school does not have any rule of that nature. The NCAA and of course, you know that the NFL has a rule that allows the defense to match up to the offense,
Okay.
but that is not in the high school rule book.
Okay. I was just curious because, I mean, the offense kind of won. They had to burn a timeout, the defense. So I just wanted to ask. Go ahead.
Anybody else?
So what is it? What is the penalty is the question from the audience. What do we call in this play?
What have they violated? What rule have they violated?
The main rule that they violated is about 10 players came on the field for no legitimate football purpose and left.
So is it a substitution infraction or is it an unsportsmanlike conduct on the coach?
By rule, it's unsportsmanlike conduct. It's 983.
So if you had the wherewithal, when would you shut this down with a flag? Is it before the snap?
Yeah, I'm gonna cover that
Okay.
a little bit later in the presentation.
Okay.
Some guys want to tag the coach on this. Chuck Hickey says he's going to flag the coach for unsportsmanlike.
When George and I were looking at this earlier today, one of the things that I thought about, well, is it possible that this is a legitimate confusion issue on the sideline? You've got the punting coach said, get on the field, and the head coach says, no, we're going for it. Now, the body language of this team tells me otherwise, but I'm not sure that we're out there to regulate body language.
No, their intent is to trick the defense.
It sure looks like it.
I disagree with you, Kurt, but I see what you're saying. They're doing this on purpose. They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
Kirk, I think the only way that you
there's legitimate confusion. This is orchestrated. Guys run to a certain point and then turn around and come right back.
there was no huddle. If there would have been a huddle after that, you could have said that they changed their mind, but that was a set play.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we've got that point out of the way. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Okay, we've got the next slide here.
Get a slide. Oh, before we get to the plays, we wanted to talk a little bit about the pregame meeting. Before the game, we all ask the coach in various forms if they have any types of plays that he wants to talk to us about. David's going to talk a little bit about the different number of ways that you can ask that question. But if what he tells you is an illegal play, then we have an obligation to tell him why his play is illegal. And once we do that, we will get the inevitable comment, which will be, well, we ran that play last week and they told us it was legal, which in my view is the coach's way of asking, are you really sure you want to tell me this is illegal? If what he tells you is illegal, then it may make sense to remind him that the play has to be executed legally. And the personal experience I had with this was a coach who didn't say anything before the game when he was asked about special or unusual plays. But in the fourth quarter, it was a close game, and he took a timeout, and he used the timeout to called me over to the sideline so that he could tell me his next play. And his next play was a play where the quarterback was going to go in motion, and the ball would be snapped directly to a back who would then have a pass run option. And the way he described it, it was totally legal, and I didn't anticipate anything, so I said, that's fine. So they go out there, and right away the quarterback jerks out as if he had the ball and goes into motion. So I killed it for a false start, and the coach went absolutely bonkers, screaming at me, I told you what was coming. You said it was okay. And then I told him it was a false start, and he went on to lose the game. And on Monday morning, he called Tom Robinson and told him what an a-hole I was. So Tom called me, and when I explained it to Tom, Tom's answer was, I knew that was what you were going to tell me. It was inherent in the way he was complaining about it. So again, you have to make sure that the execution is proper. And of course, when he explained it to me, he didn't tell me that the quarterback was going to pull out as if he had the ball when he went into motion. So with that, David, did you want to say a few words about the discussion with the coach before the game?
Yeah, when we meet with our coaches before the game, I think we have to choose our wording properly. As the bullet item points out there, be prepared for the be prepared. Right there it is. So when we talk to coach, I think it's better to say, Coach, what do you have prepared for us? Instead of using the word, Coach, do you have any trick plays tonight? We've asked him what does he want us unusual to be prepared for, and that's usually where he's going to ask about a play or tell us about a play, and he's usually going to end it with a comment, that's legal, correct? If your dialogue is going to last more than a minute or so with him on why it's not legal, I would just advise him, Coach, this isn't legal. We don't have the time to explain all the rules now, but I'll visit with you during the week. It's perfectly fine. Don't get into a long, drawn-out dialogue out there.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to bring up as well is it seems like it's sometimes good to pause and think through what he's asking. A lot of times the coach is not going to use the terminology that we're used to from a rule book standpoint, and he's trying to be creative. He's 0-6, and he's trying to come up with a fancy play to change the momentum of his career or the year. I mentioned earlier when we were talking that it might not be a bad idea to just plant the seed that here's my initial thoughts on this, because I know I've gone back to the crew and said, here's what the coach brought up. I'm not sure what he's going to do with it. And then somebody brings up an issue that, well, if he does it this way, and maybe that's what he actually meant, it might give you an opportunity to go back and revisit and educate the coach as opposed to creating a problem, because chances are he's not going to use it that game. He'll use it the next game and say, well, you guys, last week they told me it was legal, or last week they told me it was illegal, and now the opponent's doing it. So I just think communication is the critical piece there. We were also going to mention at this point that it's unnecessary to get captains' numbers from the coach. I've worked with a couple white hats that have been around for years that are still getting the captain's numbers, and it's just an unnecessary step for the coach to have to come up with 4 captain's numbers. So anybody else got anything? Mark,
let me add something to that. If we have football this fall, we have a rule change that essentially cuts the captain out of the penalty options at the discretion of the coach. So that's even one more less reason to find out who the captains are. Once you have the coin toss, the captain is effectively out of the rest of it, unless you need them for player control or something like that.
So, Kurt, who do we ask who's going to call the toss?
let them wrestle for it. They'll figure it out. They know. I used to think that it would be a complication if there were 2 kids. I've never seen that to be the case.
Personally, I, as a referee, think that's wrong. You should always figure out who's going to call the toss, so make sure that the right person is on the right sideline. I think we want to ask the coach, does the captain know what he wants to do if he wins the toss? The coach will tell you what he wants the captain to tell you, and then you make sure that happens. So I always ask for the captain's number, the calling captain. I don't care about the rest of the guys, but I need to know who's going to call the toss. If the coach is too preoccupied for it, that's fine. We'll get to it at the sideline. but it's a good rule of thumb to ask for the captain's number who's calling the toss.
There's no doubt that you need that captain at the white hat's end of that line. I certainly agree with that. And I support the idea of asking the coach if he knows what he wants to do, because it kind of puts him into a position of having that answer for his players as well. So I think that's a good idea. Anything else on that?
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please.
So we go into slide or film?
Slide.
Okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the trickery, and if I may say the illegal trickery, comes by abusing the substitution process. So I have the rule up there. Don't worry about the part that you can't see at the bottom. That's just the name of the clips. But the substitution process, either real or pretended, can't be used to deceive the opponents. So now we'll take a look at the first play, and the play we're interested in is the play after the kickoff. So they'll go ahead and kick off the ball, and then you will see what they do with the following play. Okay, so we have a huddle. And we have a substitute come on and a replaced player seemingly leave, but he actually stays on the field, and the linesman moves away from him, and then he goes downfield and drops the pass due to intervention by a higher power. So what happened here is this was all rehearsed, and there were only 10 people in that huddle. So the substitute was a fake because they never intended for him to leave, and he went and he even stood parallel to the sideline to make it look like he was on the team bench, and of course nobody paid any attention to him. So this is a clear abuse of the substitution process.
So mechanically, guys, how do we handle this? Let's talk about mechanics on this play. So the line judge, can he do anything about this? Can we do something about this before it happens? What are we doing, guys? Come on. Let's think about
what's going on.
I heard two comments. All three, you're asking about probably the head linesman over here on the opposite side. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, yeah. I mean, what can we do? What can we do about this? As far as, do we shut it down soon? Do we?
Okay,
play goes off? I mean, let's do something about this.
I was going to get into this a little bit later, but since it already came up, I would invoke the unfair act rule and kill this before they have a chance to run the play. The reason for that is, if you go by the letter of the rule that I put up there, it's an illegal participation rule, and all illegal participation fouls are live ball fouls. Well, actually, yeah. So you could have let this go, and then it would have been enforced from the previous spot. So it would have undone the potential touchdown. What I really want to caution people about is calling these unsportsmanlike conduct fouls, because if you call them unsportsmanlike conduct fouls, then the play counts and the penalty is enforced from the succeeding spot. So if they had pulled that off and you called it unsportsmanlike, the touchdown would have counted, and then you would have had the 15 yards on the try or the kickoff. And that's not right, because frankly that play is outright cheating, and the coach was confronted by Chassa over this play. It was a playoff game, and the head coach's explanation is My assistants told me it was legal. So that's one example. Let's go ahead and look at the next play.
So set this up, George. You see the play?
Okay, so the play is a field goal attempt, and again, the player that's over there by the numbers, he makes like he's leaving, but he doesn't leave, and again, he stays on the field and takes a stance with his shoulders parallel to the sideline to obscure the fact that he's there. And this one worked.
I think our own Scott Saki was on this game. Or maybe. But the tough part here, Ussery, you're talking about mechanics. Here we're taking advantage of on a 5-man crew. There's no wing official over there in this particular situation, which makes it even more difficult to officiate.
Why is there not an official over there?
I don't know. This might have been, I don't know.
He went under the goalpost.
I don't understand that
Field
comment.
goal attempt.
Oh, hold on.
Under the goalpost with the back judge. It was a field goal.
Yeah, hold on. So we've got the referee moved to the other side of the kicker. We got a right-footed kicker. So the referee is going to be on the far side. So the wing official, the head linesman, would go under the post, exposing that far sideline.
So the referee was late getting over there because he didn't know it was a try.
Maybe.
Attempted field goal because you see him running at the last minute.
Shoot, that's a 55-yard field goal.
So that's our first clue as White Hats. Is that realistically going to happen? Did we observe it during warm-ups that kid was making those kind of field goal attempts? So we got to kind of think about game situations, and when we see something unusual happen like that, that should bring up our radar and saying, I don't know about this. Are we in the right position? And, of course, at this point, we can't shut it down to get ourselves in the right position. We basically let him get by with the play.
Well, it's possible we wouldn't even know that. I mean, from the positions we're on the field, it's hard for everybody to see if that player is on or off the field over there. I mean, we are fully exposed in this situation. It's almost like the only guy might be that wing that went under the post looking back, and he's 50 yards away. This is tough to officiate. Maybe this near wing would recognize that why is there somebody over there going downfield streaking on a pass? I don't know.
One thing on this that as a U and an R, a lot of times we will count the offense, and so we're counting. We probably have, we know it's no longer a penalty to have 10, but we like to communicate to ourselves that we only have 10 players out there, and that may help us get our eyes open that where'd this 11th player come from.
Yeah, the point being, though, it'd be hard to shut this down before the snap.
Absolutely.
This is almost like, no, you're not going to be allowed to do that.
Because do we really watch that substitute go all the way off and somebody else could have stepped on? No, we don't always have that.
Now, we don't see where, at what point in time the referee blows the ready. Well, we don't have that anymore, so we'll just forget that.
Good point.
All right, we got another one.
All right, yeah, so we have two more related plays, if we can go to the next one.
So it's really the same concept, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be play 5.
So they bring a guy in, or act like they're bringing a guy in, but they had 11.
Well, you still got the old clip up.
No, you must have froze, George, unless.
Yeah, because number 11 comes on, and the other substitute does not actually leave the field, so they're good as far as numbers.
So George, you must be froze. We're looking at the next play.
I still have the field goal.
Yeah, so hopefully everybody else is seeing a play that's a regular scrimmage play, but they must have had 10 on, bring the 11th on, and then they exchanged him for a guy that heads to the sideline. So again, another attempt to deceive keeping that 11th player.
Right, yeah, I have it now. Yeah. So that's a pretended replaced player. So it's pretty much the same as the previous one. Let's look at the next one. So here we have an injury.
I'm going to fast forward
and of
this.
Of course, everybody is focused on the injury. And you'll see that the head linesman is not paying any attention to what's going on to his team's huddle. Instead, he waddles in and he's watching the injured player. And this belies the importance of the wings monitoring the huddles during timeouts. And again, we have someone who stayed on the field. So now the comment that I was going to make earlier is valid. Once the injury was clear, by the time the injury was cleared and the referee blew the ready with a 25-second play clock, that sleeper was outside the numbers. And that's, as a minimum, that's a violation of the substitution rule. But this is, and again, clearly an attempt to deceive and should be treated as illegal participation.
George, let me play a what if. What if they did huddle and we kind of have a break in the film here where we shift from injury to the actual setup? What if he did come in 9 and then go back out in a sneaky fashion? No foul?
I got a play like that coming up.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments on this one, or whether we'll move to one more?
In fact, that play is the next play. So go ahead and go to the slide.
Okay.
Okay, this is also illegal participation, and it's also a foul for a player to go into motion limping and then taking off at full speed, or lying on the ground to deceive the opponents. I did have a clip that I couldn't find for this presentation of a college play where a receiving team player on a kickoff was wearing a blue jersey and he laid on the blue end zone so that the kicking team wouldn't realize that he was there. And then he ended up jumping up and catching the ball and running down the sideline. But that also is faking an injury or lying on the ground is also illegal participation. On the next slide.
I heard you can't do cartwheels either, correct?
Yeah, I think anything that's not related to football should be looked at with a jaundiced eye. Okay, so here is a substitution rule. And this is the one that says that after the ready, everybody has to have been at least momentarily between the numbers before the snap. And this is only a 5-yard penalty for illegal substitution. And it's pretty hard to violate with the 40-second play clock because the ball is ready as soon as the umpire puts it down and starts walking away. So the only time that they could really get caught on this is if you have an admin stoppage and you have the 25-second play clock. But let's take a look at this next play. And we'll look at the top of the screen. We'll see that he comes on very late, just before the snap. And he does get inside the numbers. So this is legal. This is on the defense to pick up that guy because he's inside the numbers. So this answers the question about that you had at the beginning, Kurt, about what's legal deception and what's illegal deception. And you may think that this is dirty pool, but this is legal. They wrote the rule to require the guy to get inside the numbers, and the coach complied with the rule. So they didn't fudge anything.
So do we have a slide for this one, or we keep going?
No. Now we have a slide. We're going to leave the substitution process and go to verbal deception. And this was the point I made earlier. We want to call these unfair acts and not unsportsmanlike fouls. And I explained that because if you call it an unsportsmanlike, then the play counts and the foul is enforced from the succeeding spot after the play ends. So on this one, I never had any audio, but it's clear that the quarterback is acting as if there is some kind of a problem, and they're trying to lull the defense into complacency, and then the ball is snapped directly to a back. So this is unfair.
And the unfair portion is the fact that he's barking commands and drawing attention to himself.
Right. He's telling lies to convince the defense that there's a problem when there is no problem, and they're executing the play that they planned.
So in this case, we're going to shut it down after the snap? Or, let the play continue and flag it at the snap?
I would shut this down as soon as the ball is snapped, because right then is when the foul occurs. So this stuff is best left for drama class and not football. Okay, on this one, he's pretending that he had the wrong ball, and the officials were oblivious to it. So again, this is verbal deception. This is an unfair act.
And it's good to shut this one down before the umpire has to run 30 yards downfield. We get tired quick. Anything on the chat line for the verbal stuff, Mark? Or David, you got anything?
No, I totally agree with that.
I don't have anything, Kurt.
Pretty straightforward. We're going to shut these down as soon as we recognize them.
Okay, so now we can go to our next topic, which is the hook and ladder play. So the question here is, what happens during this play? There's really two ways it can transpire. One, the receiver can catch the ball and throw a backward pass to a trailing receiver, or he can bat the pass to a trailing receiver. So the only time we really have a problem with these plays is when the ball ends up on the ground. So do we have a catch followed by a loose ball, or do we have an incomplete pass? And I have two clips to contrast those 2 points. So in this one, it looks like he caught it and was able to throw it to the trailing receiver. He does actually take a few steps. He's got control of the ball, and he throws a direct backward pass to a player that's expecting the ball. This is legal execution of the hook and ladder play. Okay, on this one, the ball hits the ground.
Hey, George, we're going to run a poll on this one.
Yeah, because we've got a lot of good questions.
Go ahead and run the poll before I say anything further.
Yeah, we don't say anything further. This is a great play for discussion. Love this one. All right, well, one more time, and then we're going to put the poll up here. Oh, you know what, George? I screwed up and didn't get the right poll set up. All right, so I'm going to have to – I messed this poll up, and I apologize. So instead of a yes, no, the question is, was that a catch, fumble, or an incomplete pass? So yes, catch, fumble, no, not a catch, fumble, and therefore incomplete pass. So yes means catch, fumble, no means incomplete. Yes means catch, fumble, no means incomplete.
We're getting a lot of responses on our chat line.
Go ahead and take the poll. You should see a poll. Yes is catch, fumble. No is incomplete. So the question has to do with, was it a catch? And I'm not getting any responses. Oh, it says the poll's closed. No wonder.
Yeah, Kirk, I'm seeing everything in the chat line instead.
Let me try it one more time. Relaunch poll. Here we go. Sorry. Try it again.
There you go, guys.
So yes means catch fumble. No means incomplete pass. Yes is catch fumble. No is incomplete pass. And I will close this in 3, 2, 1. All right. Yes was catch fumble. So there's very few catch fumbles and a whole bunch of incomplete passes. And I will stop sharing that and we'll look at it one more time.
Okay, and then I'm going to say a few words, and then I'm going to let David speak because he had a real good explanation during the rehearsal.
All right, so back to the start. And I'm going to want to get Terrence's comment in here too at some point. All right, I'm just going to keep circling this back and forth. You guys can go ahead and talk. David first?
All I'm going to say is that ball leaves his hands before he ever gets a foot down. So it can't possibly be a catch, but David saw some other things. So go ahead.
That was one of the first things that we pointed out, is that by our rule, he did not establish back down to the ground, so therefore we can't have a catch. But the other key is, does he ever control that ball, or did he just bat it back towards his line of scrimmage without a possession? Terrence?
This is the incomplete pass all day for us. I mean, because there's a lot of different elements as far as feet, having firm control, and being able to do something with the ball. And none of these things happen on this play. So this is the incomplete pass.
I think if we play that all the way out, Kirk, let's watch what the players and the officials do here at the end. So they're already assuming it's going to be an incomplete pass. But many times you're going to find one or two players that don't really know if that's an incomplete pass or fumble. So as an official, if you're going to go incomplete, let's get on that whistle. But let's be careful that we don't walk into the play of somebody coming to pick up that ball.
Mark, you got anything from the chat line?
Negative, all incomplete.
We like incomplete on this. That is the correct call. Good. Umpires, we might be able to help out on
this. The last thing I'd like to point out here is the bat is legal because any eligible receiver can bat a forward pass in any direction. So there's no foul here. It's just an incomplete pass. So now we can move on to our last topic, and it's kind of the same thing, but on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and that's the shovel pass. And the issue here is, does the quarterback catch the snap and actually throw a forward pass, or does he bat the ball forward? And if he does, that is an illegal bat, because the rule says that a backward pass can be batted by any player in any direction, except it cannot be batted forward by the team in possession. So if the quarterback batted the snap forward, it would be an illegal bat. So we've got 3 clips here, and the first one is going to show a legally executed shovel pass. He catches the ball. He takes at least a step. It may not be the desired 2 steps, but he at least does something common to the game, and then he throws the ball forward underhanded. And remember, it doesn't matter how you throw it, it's the direction of the ball. So I think here we clearly have a forward pass. So this is a legally executed shovel pass.
Any comments or disagreements on this? I think it's a pretty good foundational clip here. Okay.
Okay, so on this one, I think we clearly have an illegal bat. Again, he jumps up. He doesn't complete the catch of the backward pass. There's no evidence, at least to me, that he ever had control of the ball. He just kind of taps it forward. And this was, it was flagged.
I do struggle with this because I do see a little bit of control. It's not like he just ricocheted the ball. Even though it was quick, he did catch and redirect.
If I told you the guy was an all-state volleyball player, would that change your mind?
So you like this? You like this flag? I want to stay on this. Anybody else got any comments on this? I wonder if this gets missed. This looks like it's up at Jeffco. This must have been in Denver.
Kirk, one thing that we pointed out earlier when we were visiting was that this just goes into more of our mechanics guys are so important that, is our referee wide enough? Can he see through the quarterback to see the left tackle? Is he getting a good look at, did he catch the ball or did he just tap the ball? So just keep that in mind as we move forward. That's why, we just continually strive to kick our referees deep and wide.
Okay, so without comments, we'll go to the last clip, and you can show it and you can do your poll on this one.
All right, we'll show it a few times here. We'll put the poll up in a second. I don't believe not that it matters, but the ball does not hit the ground, I don't think.
No, I don't think it does.
All right, one more time, and then I'm going to put the poll up. All right, so the poll question is going to be just like it was before. It's a yes/no question. Relaunch. Continue. All right, you should see the question, yes or no. And so let's just ask the question, is this legal or illegal? Legal? Yes. Illegal? No. So is it legal? I said that wrong. Yeah, just the question, is it legal? Sorry. Is it legal? Got 27 voters. We'll shut it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm ending the poll, sharing the results. We've got a lot of legal.
Oh, that's a surprising result. I thought we'd get closer to 50-50. I do think this is legal. He does rise up. He's got both feet on the ground. I think he has control of it, and he does throw it forward. So I'm glad to see that the vast majority agreed with that. And again, to go back to what David was talking about before, I don't think the referee sees this. He is straight line from this play because he is not wide enough.
So let's talk a little bit about mechanics on this guys, for a minute. Let's walk through this. Let's assume the flag is going to go there. I would hope the wing guy would come in and say, "What do you got, white hat?" Wing guys don't, if you see something that could help a crew, be a crew saver, then we should be talking about this. We don't know. Maybe he did come in. I don't know. But I'm just saying from a mechanic standpoint, let's communicate and go to the white hat and say, can we talk about this?
Mark, I think that's a great point because definitely our line judge is going to get a great look at this because the player's going away from him.
My thought here is the head coach has designed this play just like this. If we're going to flag this, our explanation to the coach is going to go counter to what he has been practicing all week. It's tough to come to a sideline and tell the coach you got a foul, and he says that's what we do. That is our offense. That's our game plan. And now you're telling me that's illegal. I can assure you he's going to say we do that every week. We've probably done it 3 times this game already.
Hey, Kirk, just like we opened up the presentation, if they're going to run a trick play, they need to be 100% correct. The same goes for us. We need to be 100% correct if we think that trick play is not being ran correct.
Anybody else? Mark on the chat? Throwing anything in here?
No, I think the consensus is it's not an illegal play is what it is.
These are good plays. We've got about 5 minutes. George had this extra play in his arsenal It doesn't really have a lot of background story, but we'll play it here. And I don't know if the film is clear enough on your end. Let me take it back to the snap. So I'll describe it. So the quarterback bobbles the snap and then gives it a poke forward. I don't know if you can see that. Never does get a grip on the ball and then gives it a volleyball tip. Flag comes out.
So what I would say here is the referee did two things right. One, he kept the play alive, and two, he flagged it.
So the foul has to do with a bat. Illegal bat.
Because he did not bat it towards his own goal. He batted it towards his opponent's goal on a backwards pass.
All right. Not one you see very often. Kind of a Haley's Comet, honestly. They don't happen often.
That's Terrence.
That's Terrence's term, the Haley's Comet. All right. Well, we're at 26 after. Final words. George, you got any final words, departure words?
No, thanks for the opportunity to give the presentation. I enjoyed it.
A lot of hard work goes into this. Thank you. David.
No, George, thank you again for all your work. Guys, thanks for participating tonight. Lots of good comments on the side. There was one that came across something about it wasn't a trick play, and that is it's so hard to define what a trick play is. So we were kind of going after the unusual plays also. So, but very, very good stuff to go over.
Terrence.
Good night.
Mark, you got anything?
Nope,
good?
Good night.
Terrence, good?
No, good job. I think we had a great week. Let's just keep plugging.
Keep it going. We got a Saturday morning talk about RPO, and then we're back at it Sunday night. So thank you guys all for joining us. Have a good night. Stay healthy, safe. We're out. Thanks.